I will post the text so you can follow along. Let us do that first. Hope you got it. Yes? Very nice. One, two mistakes will be there, but I'll point it as we go along. Not a problem. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. Namaste to everyone and welcome to what is that? Uh, no sound. Just for you or for everybody else? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this is just for the future. If any sound problems are there, please log out and then log back in. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what they need to do. Okay. So this is, welcome to the, what is that, Labor Day weekend retreat. We'll be studying this in the mornings, and we have a text, we have in the tradition, we have many kinds of texts, secondary texts. And interestingly enough, they're all attributed to Adi Shankara, even though he did not write these, but they are attributed to Adi Shankara for reasons of respecting the Acharya in the lineage. And since all knowledge comes from the brightest point of the lineage, which is Adi Shankara, the people wrote in his name frequently, or the people who are writers of the secondary texts called the Prakarana Granthas, they might have written, they might all be other Adi Shankaracharya, certain successors, and so they did not put their individual name given to them. And then, so what did they do? They just attributed it to the Adi Shankara. So this is what this is a text, Panchaka, also attributed to Adi Shankara. Very nice to study this, and I'll tell you why I chose this and why it is a particularly wonderful text to study at this time. You see, there is interestingly, there is concern with all this pandemic raging and so many people, losing their lives every day, so many cases go on the rise every day. And all the experts, we have people who are what is that, we have people who are very much doctors, scientists, etc., who are extremely concerned about this people moving around during the long weekend, because this is what people know. As soon as one holiday comes, there is no there is no parampara, if I can use that word. There is no parampara of staying home. Yeah. People are grihasthas, means people who's householders for name only. They're not, they're not really staying at home. Very difficult for people to stay at home. And so therefore what? So therefore they're all over the place. And as soon as the holiday weekend comes, long weekend, and there are, you know, all the holidays are celebrated, so people get a long weekend. And so this first Monday, I think in September, is designated as the long weekend, and then you just push off. You don't stay at home. And then the experts who have been watching the trends of this pandemic, they say that during this Memorial Day weekend, somehow the cases that had been under control, because people from March to May had more or less been under, all over the world, had been under various levels of shutdown, lockdown, stay at home, etc. And then when end of May came, Memorial Day weekend, then everybody felt like they had been let out of prison. And airline travel spiked, road travel spiked, everything, people just, went crazy. And then that led to a demonstrable, what is that, a spike in cases, which was very, very difficult to control. And then it never really stopped. Somehow it kind of little bit came down or was controlled in certain areas. And then came another long weekend, which was that 4th of July weekend, Independence Day weekend. And then again there was a big surge. So, having watched these two trends of these two weekends, the scientists tell us, please be careful. Please don't go anywhere. For what? For this Labor Day weekend. Because this Labor Day weekend comes at a very dangerous time. It's a cusped holiday. It's a cusp from summer to fall. After Labor Day weekend, summer is officially, bid goodbye. It is done. And then after Labor Day weekend, what do we have? We have what is called fall. And with fall comes, the various, less dangerous versions of the coronavirus that we have known in the form of influenza, colds, etc. And then that can be particularly dangerous because there's no way to tell what one is having, and so people are very concerned about people moving around. And so, if you ask me, is that why you have us, you have us, what is that, stuck to the computer a couple of hours a day, every day? No, that's, that's not the idea. But the idea of the idea is in the message of this text, Kashi Panchakam. The message is very, very beautiful. So you see, there is such a thing called wanderlust, and it's not new. This wanting to get away is not new. In fact, even sadhus who stay in the same place, they also devised a kind of a holiday for themselves and called it Chaturmasya. you know, 4 months they would go off somewhere else. A rainy season, we are not able to move around, and so we'll just go someplace and sit there. This was a way to, this was a way to go to grace some other town, etc., etc. So this wanderlust is not new. Wanderlust is, as ancient as Atma Ajnanam. you know, Not that there is a competition. It is anadi. It is without beginning. Because as long as there is Atma Ajnanam's favorite expression, its favorite protege, its favorite offspring, brood, child, whatever you want to call it, is what? Wanderlust. What is the connection between self ignorance and wanderlust? If you ask me, I mean, it is just so huge and very important to look into. Wanderlust comes, from not being at home with oneself. That is what is wanderlust. Perhaps if I go there, things will get better. Perhaps if I go do something else, I will like myself more. Perhaps if I go to the coast, because that's one few things. You can go to the mountain, huh? Go to the mountain, sit there, okay, climb, and then get tired, cook something, eat, come back. Or you can go to the coast, splash about with some waves, or the waves are so rough, but you can just see them from a distance and then come back. Or you can go to some body of water, river, and then come back. Or you can count a few trees, go to the forest, come back. The choices are not that many, okay? But the wanderlust is it's from time, you cannot even say when it started, because it is anadi, because it is closely connected, closely linked to self, ignorance. I don't know my own glory. I don't know that I'm complete without needing to go anywhere. I am, I am everywhere. Sitting in one place, I am all pervasive. This is not understood. And naturally, how will it be understood? Because there is not much exposure to Vedanta, or even if there is exposure to Vedanta, there is a disconnect where this comes. Yes, I like Vedanta, but don't interfere with my holidays. you know, this is this is out of line. I have drawn the line here. So what's wrong in going? I'm taking the classes. Whatever you offer, I'm showing up. So don't do this. So this is something that is very much part of the psyche of the one who is what is that who is in the process, or suffering, either suffering from self ignorance, or in the process of trying to overcome self ignorance. That is what the whole thing is. So, even in the ancient time, this wanderlust was very much there. But I think our ancestors, in at least our Indian ancestors, were a little cleverer than us, and maybe even some of the Western ancestors, because what they would do is, they would go to places of pilgrimage. This was a very big deal, going on a pilgrimage, frequent pilgrimage to various sites. And interestingly, all the ancient temples are built near the coast. Suchindram, a wonderful, what is that? The Subramanya temple, a very nice temple for Kartikeya. And then we have a Subramanya temple. This is there. And then we have, what else? We have in the mountains, we have, of course, Badrinath, Kedarnath, Himalayan, things we have. And then we have, what else? We have near the in the forest also we have Vaishno Devi. So like this, wherever there is some wonderful manifestation of nature, Ishvara of course is present, but a temple used to be built right there to enhance and to bring out this aspect of Bhagavan's manifestation. Bhagavan is of course everywhere, but certain areas, they are called kshetra, tirtha kshetra, tirtham. It's a masculine, mostly neuter, but sometimes it is also the word is also used in a masculine way. Okay, so this is so tirtha, and tirtha means that it has many meanings. A body of water, one literal meaning, and the word tirtha is extremely old. It is from the Rig Veda. In the Rig Veda it comes. The word tirtha comes in the Rig Veda. And then, so it means a body of water. It can also mean a path. Yeah, a path, like a road. Both literally a road is a tirtha, and also one's journey is called tirtha. So in India, if somebody tells, I'm going on a tirtha yatra, I'm going on a journey I'm going on a pilgrimage. So the yatra, the journey is also called tirtha, and the destination is also called tirtha. Very interesting. This is Vedanta in everyday life. So, where else is the destination and the journey one and the same? In Vedanta. You are the seeker, and then who is the sought? Not the neighbor. You yourself are the sought. You are the seeker. You are the sought. And so they say it's not accidental that the cultural manifestation of Vedanta in all over India is also using the same word Tirtham for to symbolize the road that is traveled, literally and figuratively, the journey, and Tirtha is also the destination. Very interesting. So people undertook these Tirtha Yatras. And so they doubled up as holidays because they would, how long can you go in the temple and stare at Bhagavan's Murti? Even if the Murti is very beautiful, like Meenakshi in Madurai or anything, how long can you go blink, blink, blink and stare? After a while, you're going to get an itch. After a while, you're going to wonder who else has come, and then you're going to recognize somebody, and obviously you don't like them, but then so you want to duck and go behind some other people so that they don't see you and you don't have to say hello. All these shenanigans are happening where? Right in front of Bhagavan. So you do parikrama, you do a circumambulation of the temple, then you look at the forest, you look at the water, then you have a little picnic, you take the temple prasad and go sit by the river, and then eat, and then wash your hands in the river, take a dip, whatever it is. So this was all made, this was the ancient wanderlust holiday with, it was an Ishwarized holiday, we can say. Was very much an Ishwarized holiday. Fantastic, you know, awesome. And it was an Ishwarized holiday because the main thing that was there was, the primary purpose was to go, what is called Kshetra Mahima. Kshetra Mahima. Kshetra Mahima means every kshetra, every place of pilgrimage has some, what is that called? Some uniqueness attached to it. There is a uniqueness. Because nobody wants to go to a boring place. What are you going to do? So the mahima is there, and then you go there, you have a good time, and then you can in the olden days there was no blog that where you wrote and put your pictures, so you would come home and tell everybody that I have gone there, like Manasarovara. Manasarovar, another, lake, a very placid and wonderful lake in the Himalayas. And people go there, and then they do, they go around, and all these things, they bring the water from there, all these things are there. And so Kedarnath, Badrinath, all these are called, they all have a specific kshetra mahima, some uniqueness. And the uniqueness is to obviously, it's a self promotion. It's like, in olden days they didn't have travel brochures, so they would have kshetra mahima, so that they would advertise they would advertise the whole thing. And the word of mouth was the advertising, and they would say, oh, did you know this story is associated? And they would say, really? Yeah, Lord Shiva himself came. Really? Are you sure? Yeah, his footsteps are there. OMG, his footsteps are there. I have to go see it. you know. And then what? And people will go see anything. Even Ravana's footsteps. One, he was meditating somewhere on one this thing. There will be visitors to go there. And Swami Vivekananda meditated there on the rock. He was not sure whether his calling was to go to America or not. He was just very much in a turmoil because India was in the throes of a spiritual renaissance, and he himself was, very much involved in that renaissance. There was so much to do. There were so many things to happen that the need for this knowledge was very much there. And then, the opportunity came for him to go address the Parliament of World Religions, you know, and he didn't know whether this was the right thing to do. and so he swam across the choppy waters from Kanyakumari, the southern tip of India, to a rock that was there, a big rock, and went sat there and meditated. Came back and decided, okay, it is his calling to go to the United States. And that's how the story goes that the decision was made. Now that has become a pilgrim site, and the waters are so choppy that even the ferry that is going there every day sometimes says ferry cancelled because it's not safe for this big huge motorboat to go. Imagine, he swam across that. And so then when you go on to the rock memorial, Swami Vivekananda sat here, this is his footstep, and this is where he meditated. All these, this is called Kshetra Mahima. And the Kshetra Mahima kind of, it kind of burgeons on itself. It keeps growing because, when you tell to somebody, then, when somebody else tells you, they would have seen, one pair of footsteps somewhere. And when you tell somebody, you want to make sure that you put in your 2 cents, because otherwise, how will your trip have been very special? You should add something onto it. It's not exactly lying. It is overpouring of Shraddha and Bhakti, which takes on a life of its own. So people imagine seeing a streak of lightning. I mean, they see a streak of lightning and they say, oh, that had the face of Brahmaji. This one had the nose of Lord Vishnu. This one has the ears of the goddess. Like this, it gets built up. Same thing with same thing it is also with the what is that uh, this Kshetra Mahima. Same thing with Adi Shankara's life. Adi Shankara's life is also exactly the same. You know, he did this. Oh, really? He did that? Yes. And then after that, what did he do? He did that. He did this. So like this, there is a lot of interest in these stories, because the stories naturally attract, because that's a way to connect. But these stories specially attract a lot, very much, because Bhagavan is associated with it. Either Bhagavan or some Bhagavan like saint person, somebody who is highly revered, very popular, is associated with that place. So you look at Shiradi in India, associated with the first Sai Baba, and so that is just become a huge place of pilgrimage. So some saint, and then you look at certain Mahakaleshwar temple, in mid India, that has become a place of Lord Shiva's, place. And then you look at so many things, like this. The whole of India is filled with temples in beautiful places, so that for free you can Ishvarize your holiday. That was the whole idea. You Ishvarize the holiday, then what? Then you are with Ishvara all the time. So it doesn't become some kind of a distraction from your regular life, a Vaidika life of being one with the Lord all the time. And through karma, through dharma, everything. And even in the pilgrimage, it is all set up, because you feed the people who cannot afford to be fed. And then it's a free holiday, because there were all these little chatras means places to stay, chowtries we call them, built by entrepreneurs and heads, like kings, entrepreneurs, etc., would build these simple dwelling areas, one big room, whole family just sleeps on they bring their little what is that, Indian sleeping bag, which is basically two sheets, one for the floor and one covering, and then so they would all sleep, and then in the same place. And then you didn't have to pay for that. Your trip was already paid for. Your holiday, your Ishvarized holiday, was already paid for. And then what did you do? You left a little donation at the end, whatever you could. 1 rupee, 1 rupee. 10 rupees, 10 rupees. In those days, 1 rupee was quite a lot. 100 rupees, 100 rupees, 1000 rupees, 1000 rupees, doesn't matter. Whatever you could leave, you left for the next person. So, this whole concept in America, which people, make a big story, pay it forward, goes back to this. From here only they learnt to pay it forward. This was a paid holiday. You didn't have to do anything. And what? Oh, okay, the stay is covered. What about food? Food would be provided. For lunch, you went to the temple. You had your darshan. You hung around. Hot lunch, which is the AKA prasad, would be provided. Lunch was taken care of, and dinner was cooked at the place where you stayed. Somebody would sponsor the dinner. Somebody would come and count all the quote unquote sleeping bags when you were away. They would count, and then they would say, okay, so many families, so many mouths to eat. And so they would take a little head count sometime during the day. Nobody knows when it happens, but it would happen. And then, at night, hot food would come. 2 meals a day, more than enough. And usually it was also associated with fasting, and then for the people who are fasting, some milk or fruits or whatever people ate would be also provided. This was really the best holiday ever. You met a lot of people, you got to see a beautiful place, and then you also plugged into what is called the Kshetra Mahima, and you had some stories to tell. Plus, that story, you were indelibly part of that story because you added to that story. So they saw only one pair of footsteps, but you saw footsteps and a face in the clouds. Okay, so the next time the story is told, then the footsteps plus the face in the clouds. So you see, you have become an indelible part of this Kshetra Mahima. You are included in the Mahima. See how this oneness operates in the day-to-day life in India. It is amazing. It is just awesome. So then what? So then after that, we had, we would go, then they would go home, and then, take with them some, some kind of a, what's that? Oh, and then the keepsake. So you go there and you get some mementos, some kind of, you buy a photo of this particular devata or some scenery or something like that to as a keepsake, and then a small something to give to somebody or to have for yourself and come back. So this was the life of a Vaidika. So that means what? Wanderlust was very much there, even in ancient times. The wanderlust was, ratified, if not justified, by making it all about Bhagavan. You're going to see Bhagavan. You're not going to see the ocean, etc., or you're not going to see the mountains, the rivers. Of course, all that is Bhagavan, but one doesn't know that, and then one is not having that Sarvatma Bhava. So the person who is going is a regular person, unexposed to Vedanta. But even in this journey, there is exposure, because the word Tirtha itself means what? Path as well as destination. And then the Tirtha is all about seeing the temple, seeing the surroundings, and appreciating Bhagavan in the surrounding places. Then what happened? Of course, Kali Yuga came around, and the concept of Tirtha, you know, went to the dogs. And then what? Yeah, because mostly now Tirthas are visited by dogs because they know they'll get some food and all that. So literally it went to the dogs. And then, the holidays became, what should I say, secularized rather than Ishwarized, because of all the Western influence, colonialism, the colonial influence, in de-tirthifying, if that can be a word, is very much there. We can see it in India, because the whole concept of holiday for the rulers, the East India Company, and then later the British, the monarchy, they would send all these civil servants because somebody had to rule and manage, you know all the people who were unable to manage themselves. And so what did they manage? They managed to create some confusion. They managed to create hatred between people. They managed to sow, seeds of discord. And they managed to give us all a terrible inferiority complex. So they were really good managers for these reasons. So during the time of the British occupation, Then, we see this diversification of the tirtha from what is the modern holiday. Definitely. Because wherever the British went or the French went to colonize, the Dutch, the Portuguese, all these, Spaniards, wherever they went, they went to all these hot, unwelcome places. And they had to be there. There were no choice. Well, why they had to be there? They were a civil servants, and or if they had a choice, they chose the monetary. They looked at the monetary returns. They went to places which were rich in mineral wealth. Bhudevi, mineral wealth. They were rich in forest wealth, so they had to loot. And so, in order, you can't just loot long distance, you know. So they had to loot, stay there and loot. And so how do you stay there and loot? You have to, you need a vacay because you're all hot and bothered, you're sweating all the time, and then mosquitoes are eating you alive. And so they would stake out what are called some, places, cold places at heights. In India, they are called hill stations. I'm wondering what is this hill station? This hill station is for the British diplomat. Yeah, and so they would have little homes, they would build a house and then go there and rule from there and come just a little bit of inspection and go there again because they could not, poor things, they came from cold countries and they could not colonize properly if they were in the heat all the time. So they had to go somewhere. So, but then no Ishvara, no, nothing there. Because even church is a place of worship, but it's a congregational place. It doesn't have, very few churches, especially modern ones, will have, Kshetra Mahima. The ancient churches had it. Even now they have it. You go to France, you go to Spain, you go to all those places, they will have Kshetra Mahima because they're very, very ancient. Like this Camino, people do this walk, and there definitely there is Kshetra Mahima. But these, the things that were built in colonial times were holidays that were devoid of Bhagavan, holidays that were just to get away from everything, including Bhagavan, which you really cannot get away from. So, thereby sealing this idea that, there is no difference between the wayfarer and the destination. So those holidays became popular, and we, the products, the children of a colonized, nation, we just aped them completely. We aped them without any recourse to our own buddhi, and then we also wanted to go for holidays, and this is how it has, it has come about. Now the holidays means you just go somewhere and do something. There is not necessarily, that connection is not there unless somebody understands this and is traditionally minded, and then you take a pilgrimage, you know and so this is, so the pilgrimage now is a, the going on a pilgrimage is very much an endangered art. It is not something that endangered activity. It is not something that, that is very much thought about or indulged in that much. So therefore what? So therefore now we, now we see how this, this wanderlust was channeled by the sages to make sure that one is still, while fulfilling the wanderlust, one is still on track, not very far away in one's consciousness, in one's awareness from Bhagavan, and that is sort of, made into the primary purpose of the trip. This was the whole idea, very much the whole idea. So now, you know the so therefore what? So therefore this tirtha and this tirtha kshetra became a place of redemption and liberation for those who did not have Vedanta. Naturally, because you go to certain places and you go see Bhagavan means what? Some Papa Kshaya takes place. What is Papa Kshaya? All your omissions and commissions from this and other lives have a chance to, what is that? Have a chance to get reduced. What is the connection between Papakshaya and, and the, and going on a pilgrimage? What is the connection? The connection is that you are undertaking a journey that is not very easy, like Shabarimala. Shabarimala is a mountain there, and is very, where Lord Ayyappa sits, and going there is very, very, difficult. So you have to climb the things. They did not have those zip lines which they have now, and then you have to actually climb the mountain. You have to actually go through the forest. All these things you have to do, and you have to actually enter the cave, like in Vaishno Devi, to have darshan of the goddess. You have to enter the cave. You have to actually take birth. It's like going through the birth canal, of the mother of the universe. You take her on as your mother, and it's very difficult. And so like this, the difficulties, and not to mention the, any stomach upsets along the way, and then what is that, water problems, and some, sickness, and mosquitoes feasting on you. Yeah, that is, you have done the mosquitoes a favor by going on this pilgrimage, because they say aha, and then they talk to each other. I don't get the city people very often. This is a rare treat, don't disturb me. They might be discussing among themselves. So like this, you have to undergo some difficulties, and that itself, and you're not undergoing the difficulties for no reason at all. You're undergoing the difficulties with the idea of surrendering at the altar that is there, which is Bhagavan. And so therefore, that this karma of undergoing the difficulties for the sake of having darshan is paid by what is called by some of the omissions and commissions being left behind at the shrine. And when you leave the omissions and Bhagavan takes away the omissions and commissions, Harihi means please take it away, the one who takes away. Hara also means the one who takes away. So then these omissions and commissions are taken away, and then what? And then one is, the burden is lightened. So one is lightened, if not enlightened, as a result of the kshetra of going to the tirtha. Little bit lighter one feels, and then one comes back for having, little more self-compassion, little more self-forgiveness, and a new enthusiasm with which to greet the world. That is the whole, that is the whole kind of a thing. So the wanderlust was channeled into, for the sake of, what is called antahkarana shuddhi. Some of the raga dveshas die down, others are suspended for the time being, and still others, if they don't, even if they don't die down, they lie down and don't bother you for some time. This is a great thing. One comes back recharged, rejuvenated, because one has unplugged temporarily from the daily grind of samsara. So the pilgrimage, channels the wanderlust into what is called antahkarana shuddhi. So this was the ancient model. Now, nothing wrong with this, because this is how slowly people understand. And people, in fact, used to go to pilgrimage. One more thing we need to see about the pilgrimage is that people used to go to the pilgrimage in groups. Hordes of people together as a procession, chanting on the road, walking on the road, because sometimes you undertake a vow saying that I'm going to accomplish this journey by foot. And if that was daunting enough, because it's like what, 1,000 kilometers from where you live, if that's not daunting enough, still others would say that I'm going to roll up this mountain. We have heard of people rolling down the mountain. That happens automatically. Gravity, Bhagavati is there, and she takes care of you coming down the mountain. Because what goes up must come down, however unceremoniously. But here these people roll up the mountain. They tie their hands like this, and they tie their feet together, and they roll it. This is all a way of just doing papakshaya. So this is, and then they would go in groups, and then some of the bhajans they would sing were very nice. I mean, I have heard this. I myself participated in some of these bhajans, and some of the bhajans says, like the one favorite place of what is that, one favorite pilgrimage site is for Lord Krishna is in Pandharapura, you know, Pandharpura, and then where Lord Vithala, Vithala is there, and so they will all chant and say that Pandharpura is in my heart. But then don't ask them, then why are you going there? You know, why are you going? If it's in your heart, stay at home and look into the heart and revel right there. Don't eat all these nonsense, some samosas, something you will have and come back with a stomach upset. Save yourself this effort, this ayasa. But no, they will still go, but they'll be chanting with their cymbals and with various noise makers, that shekares and this and that, and they will be saying, Lord Vithala is in my heart, Pandharapura city is in my heart, and then so like this they'll be chanting. But all this is Vedanta. All this is, see, when they are ready to see how quickly this insight will take place, it's amazing, because they've been chanting it since as children, going to the pilgrimage. And when they understand this, when they are ready to study, and this will come effortlessly. It's just so beautiful, very very nice to see that. So this is, the mahima of pilgrimages in general. So this wanderlust is something, connected. Now we'll talk a little about the wanderlust before we enter the text. So this wanderlust, as I said, is a brood of Atma Ajnanam. Atma Ajnanam is the matriarch of every single problem in life. That is what it is. Everything you trace it. If you're a Vedantin, you learn this, now we have this, what is now the contact tracers are in fashion, every city hires a whole bunch of people, gives them training, and then when an infection cluster breaks, okay, who did this person see? OMG, these people saw 10 people, and then out of those 10 people, how many of each of those 10 people saw? Who were they with? And then these contact tracers will go into all those people's phone numbers and everything, and then tell everybody to just stay put and self isolate, so you don't have to lock down the whole city. So this contact tracing is a very nice thing, wonderful. It is what is mainly keeping the pandemic in check. So the pandemic of samsara, which creates a lot of pandemonium in one's life, is kept in check by contact tracing. Everything leads back to what? Atma Ajnanam. This is what it is. Everything leads back to Atma Ajnanam. Why do I feel sad? Atma Ajnanam. Oh, but I'm having a panic attack. Atma Ajnanam. And then, oh, but I don't feel so good. I feel angry. Atma Ajnanam. I feel like nobody loves me. Definitely Atma Ajnanam. Even the teacher doesn't care for me. Atma Ajnanam on steroids. And then what else? I want to go here. Atma Ajnanam. I want to go there. Atma Ajnanam. Maybe if I go to this place and see that person, I will get something out of it. Atma Ajnanam. Everything is Atma Ajnanam. I feel incomplete. Maybe I should get married. Atma Ajnanam with a warning sound, warning bells. Then, maybe I should go here. Maybe I should do this. I feel alone. Study Kaivalya Upanishad, why? What is the connection? Because it's the treatise of onlyness, which is separate and different from loneliness. That which is only, and when you understand, can never be lonely. Okay, this is what is it. So loneliness, Atma Ajnanam, incomplete feeling, Atma Ajnanam. I want to go dominate the whole world, Atma Ajnanam. I want to have a few people who listen to me, Atma Ajnanam. At least I want to have a pet that listens to me, Atma Ajnanam. Everything is Atma Ajnanam. Anything you say is Atma Ajnanam. So this is what is called, this is called contact tracing samsara. So when you do contact tracing for the disease called samsara, for the pandemic called samsara, which is let loose in this world, then there is one and only one super spreader of samsara. Who is that? Atma Ajnanam. Everything goes back to this Atma Ajnanam. Super spreader, some super spreaders means, they are very interesting. These super spreaders, they will not have a single symptoms, not even a sniffle will be there, okay, but then they will make everyone around sick because they are carrying the virus unknowingly. Poor things, it's not their fault. And they are happily, what is that, they are grocery vendors, they are milk deliverers, so they are coming into contact with lots of people, you know who take one look at them and get sick, and then meanwhile they are completely symptom free. Some kind of, some kind of a blessing of Bhagavan to be the source of karmic, what should I say, karmic exhaustion for others. Very interesting karma they have. So here, this Atma Ajnanam is the single and only super spreader, of what? The pandemic called samsara. How? Because all sense of wanting to get away is really wanting to get away from oneself. And why is one so intolerant of oneself? Why is one so, why does one have self-loath? Why does one have self-doubt? Why does not one have self-confidence? All that is because the self is not known. Oh, what do you mean? I know the self. Yeah, the self you know. And the self that is revealed by Kashi Panchaka is very, very different. In fact, they are opposite. What kind of self do you know? You know a self that, is finite. It's as good as the body. In fact, you're convinced it's the body. That's why, you're always trying to do something to the body. you know some lotion and some potion. You drink the potion, you put on the lotion to dismiss or to, take care of some notion connected to the body. So all the time that is there. So this is not the self that is, unfolded by the Upanishad. Although the body is you, every, Shastra, every Upanishad will tell you, the body is you and the Atman, body is you. You are not just the body. Everything is you. In fact, you are the only thing. This is what Kaivalya Upanishad's message is in one sentence. So this is what it is. Body is you. You are not the body. Oh, what about the mind? Am I the mind? Mind is of course you. You are not the mind. You are much more than the mind because you can observe the mind. Senses are you, but you are not the senses. Anything that belongs to you, you are much more than that. You are not your house. You are not your spouse. You are certainly not. You don't. You don't extend into your child or your grandchild. Somewhere it has got to stop. So this the I, the I sense, the I thought, the I sense, which is simply I exist, I am, is gone into a, is very, what should I say, it has gone into some kind of unsavory partnerships. It's entered into series of unsavory contracts with so many things that have nothing to do with it. Why? Because it doesn't know itself. So it has gone and associated itself, as it were, with everything that is unworthy of it, with everything that is not like it. Why? Because it doesn't know itself. Simple. It's all back to Atma Ajnanam. Self ignorance. Atma Jnana means self ignorance. It's all back to self ignorance, back to self ignorance, back to self ignorance. So therefore, the I, there is an I sense. I sense means I thought. What is I thought? I am. In fact, that, which upholds all other thoughts. In fact, the I thought it's not even a thought. It pre-exists the thinking. It blesses the thought. I am. It may emerge as a form of a thought, but it is there without the thought also, that I am, I am, I am, I am. It's a self-broadcasting, limitlessly existent, self-conscious, you know, understanding, in other words, knowledge. This is what the I is. The I am, I am, I am, I am. Then the I am joins, this I am is called self. In Sanskrit it is called Atma. This Atma joins everything that is not Atma. Anatma joins Anatma. So this I am joins a, you know, a body dharma, and a body attribute. And the attribute of the body is what? Thin, fat, tall, short, dark, light, skin color, hair color, all these things. And then it joins that and takes on the attribute of the body upon itself and lives as the shadow of the body. This is what it is. Sad life because the body is finite, and then even, as one is sitting in this talk, one is aging minute by minute by minute by minute by minute. The Udana Vayu is going tick 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 tick. This is one of the vital airs, they call it, literal translation. So in the prana, in the pranic system, in the subtle body, so there is this vital air, and then it is called Udana Vayu, which keeps time, which counts the breaths, you see. So then the identification with the body naturally gives sorrow. So then, so the Atma, this Atma Anatma Adhyasa. Adhyasa means projection. So the projecting the infinite I onto the finite, onto everything that has finite, finitude, is one of the, what is that, symptoms of the pandemic, the universal pandemic called samsara. This is what one of the symptoms is, this. So what to do now? This adhyasa has to be unpacked. The adhyasa means projection. In other words, confusion has to be unpacked. So this is, putting the I-ness onto, transferring this I-ness onto the body, onto anything that belongs to one, onto other people's notions of oneself. So in other words, the identification of oneself in relation to whatever, there is, whether it's the body, the mind, the senses, or one's possessions, what else, one's job, one's relationships. It's a total, misidentification. So this is what is called adhyasa. And there are many kinds of confusion. This is one particular kind of confusion. So this, atma, anatma dharma, meaning dharma, the attributes of that which is not atma, is superimposed upon the atma. So the body is finite. The finitude of the body is superimposed upon this I, which happens to be free of all, free of being a mortal. So, Atmani, in the Atma, Anatma Adhyasa. So in the Atma, confusing the I for everything that is not I. It's a one particular kind of projection, which is a mistake, which is, the brood of Atma Ajnanam, which is the symptom of one of the disease of samsara. The disease of samsara has a symptom and many symptoms, and one of the symptoms is this misidentification of the I, seeing the I in everything finite, identifying with the finite. So that's where the projection is. So the projection is that, anatmani, in anatma, atma adhyasa, I look for, I look for the infinite in the finite. This is one kind of a thing. Why? Because the infinite as I is not recognized. Again, it goes back to this one super spreader. What is that? Self ignorance. So the contact tracing for samsara pandemic is very easy. Very, very easy, because it all goes back to the same source. So this is one problem, that the you know the infinite is mistaken for the finite. One problem. Then what? Atmani anatma adhyasa. Then we have another problem. What is the other problem? The finite is made, is manipulated constantly to become infinite. This is another kind of projection, projecting the infinite onto the finite. This is one kind of problem. Second problem, what was the first problem? Projecting the finite onto the infinite. One problem. First problem, we saw that where the body is mistaken for the atma, and then projecting the projecting the infinite onto the finite, another problem. And what is an example of that? Same thing, you can take that example and extend it a little bit. So therefore, I want the body to last forever. Even after one dies, the whole embalming has come, the mummification, all this, because the ancient Egyptians believed that if the body is kept intact, then the soul will be intact. That's why they just did all this elaborate embalming with all these ancient herbs and everything, and it worked. I mean, we they kept these bodies intact, so we are able to study. We are able to study how they lived, what they ate, how they what diseases they had. All this we can study thanks to the this mummification, the art of mummification. But the philosophy of mummification is better to stay mum about it, because it is just adhyasa. It is just shows adhyasa. That's all it is. Because that which is naturally coming to an end, you want to keep on extending it forever. And that is another mistake. And both together, they just become, it's a big hodgepodge of not knowing who one is. And both together are called anyonya adhyasa, the mutual is a superimposition, as it were, of the atma on anatma, and of the anatma on the atma. What else is left? Nothing else is left. This covers the whole kind of mistake. you know Thank God, because otherwise we can go another route and list a few other types of adhyasa, but I think we can we can spare ourselves that, because these two are all encompassing. Nothing more is left. I mean, the others are just little, what should I say, little pieces of dried fruit in the fruit cake. That's all it is. They are just little highlights of some certain things. Arthadhyasa, dharmadhyasa, all these things, jnanadhyasa, all these things we can let go of for now. These two are enough. Atmani anatma adhyasa, anatmani atma adhyasa. And to translate that, superimposing the finite on the infinite, and vice versa, superimposing the infinite onto the finite. I want the mind to be wonderful. I want to have a mind of a 20-year-old. So therefore what? I harvest ginkgo leaves all the time, and do all kinds of things. So ginkgo is getting extinct, and what else? Something, all these all antioxidants are all getting extinct. Acai, something, acai berries. They are very, very supposed to be very good for memory and all kinds of things. All berries, goji berries. Even in India, you can't find goji berries, although they come from here. This is what the whole thing is. Why? Because they are being sold elsewhere, all over the place, over harvested. In Nepal, you can't find goji berries, because that's where they have originated in that northeast area in the Himalayas. So this is all. This is what this is the symptom of the pandemic of samsara. See, this is the symptom. And then, therefore what, these symptoms, go back to what the cause, the root cause is not knowing the truth of the self. Not knowing the truth of the self leads one to mistake the self to be what it is not, or to take the self for something other than what it is. These two things we have seen. Then again, what is the connection with wanderlust? Because the burden of living in a finite body and yet yearning for the infinite, is a very peculiar difficulty. And it's a difficulty that, where you feel like, just running away. Naturally, because you can't stand it. You can't stand not being infinite, and therefore you try your best to become infinite. This is what the whole thing is. And all this becoming infinite is very unbecoming, because it is not leading you to what you need to do or what you want. It's not in keeping with the, with the sadhya, with the goal. And the goal is that you are all, the goal is infinity. And what does the shastra, the teachings say? You are already infinite. You're already infinite. क्या करना है? Nothing you have to do. You just have to understand it. So, the frenetic avoidance of the finite in samsara through this process of this mutual dance of superimposition, creates in one a kind of a, a dissatisfaction and discontentment centered on the self. Very difficult discontentment, because somewhere one knows I am capable of more. I want more. I want to be free of what? Of sorrow, pain, finitude, limit, a feeling of sensation of limitation. I want to be free of seeking self approval. I want to be free of being a wanting person all the time. And all this is very much, very much there. And then there is no end in sight to these shenanigans which bring me back to square one repeatedly, life after life after life. Many happy returns. That's all it is. You keep coming back, you keep coming back, you keep coming back. And this is just something which is very intolerable. And this intolerance is very of oneself. One cannot stand oneself, but before one doesn't know it, so one cannot stand people around oneself, and one cannot stand oneself. One cannot stand the house, because the house reminds you of all the undone things that need to be done. You look here, something is not put away. You look there, there is a crack that needs to be spackled, and you look somewhere else, and then you see that something is unwashed, and you look there, and then you just don't, it's all same old, same old, same old. I want something new. You know, you are purana, pura eva navacha. You are you are ancient, you are new, you are ever present, that is you. This is what the shastra says. No, I want something better. I want to be bigger. Well, you are Brahman, which is limitlessly big, but I don't know it. That is the problem. And so now we have come to the wanderlust. We have finally alighted on the connection between Atma Ajnanam and wanderlust. There is this feeling of wanting to get out of oneself, to have some kind of an experience that will make me better. And even if it doesn't promise to make me better, I need a change, because I'm sick of the same old what? The same old mismatch. This is what we have to articulate between the means and the end. The means and the end, there is a big mismatch. The mismatch between the means and the ends is the cause of sorrow. And why is there a mismatch? Because I don't know which means to deploy in order to gain the end. And the end not being separate from myself, I am without means. I cannot objectify myself. I am without means of knowledge. We can now extend that. I'm without means, I'm without a clue, I'm clueless as to how to, see this, how to understand myself, what to do in order to become become full, become complete, become lovable, become whole, become free. Very unbecoming series of wanting to become. This is not understood, and so the and one is on the sorry go round of this, action reaction action result of action. I don't like the result of action, again another action, and then this is what causes the hopelessness, this is what causes the fear and this ennui, this boredom with life, and enter wanderlust. Suddenly, the world on the other side, the pasture looks greener, the world on the other side looks little bit nicer, and then what? And then one feels like going, somewhere else in order to have a change. Therefore, awake, you know. And then what does Kashi Panchaka say? Kashi Panchaka says, no vake, stay ke. Yeah, good for the pandemic called coronavirus, good for the pandemic of samsara also. So we'll take a small break. Don't go away. Just to, get up, do whatever you want, jump up and down, and to feel like you have gotten away from the class, and then so you can come back. It'll take about five minutes so to do whatever you need to do, and then we'll reconvene right here. Okay. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ